Hi, second grade. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So, I just finished uploading my last writing lesson of the 2019-2020 school year, and I thought, that's it. I'm done. But I couldn't be. So, I decided I was going to do a read aloud for this week, and you can choose to watch it whenever you'd like. And if this is my last video to you, then it ends with on a really great note. I want you to get comfy. This could be a long one. I'm reading again from Raggedy Ann and Andy, the treasury book that I have that I read from last week. So I'll pick that up in a minute. Of course, as always, I have a think and share for you afterwards and a challenge if you're up for it. So, but that's totally up to you. I just wanted to give you one more video where you can just enjoy, listen to a story, and maybe this will be my final video and we'll end on that note. So go ahead and get comfy. I'm going to get started. We are reading a story from the Raggedy Ann and Andy Giant Treasury book that I have. I introed it last week on my Read Aloud. So I'll just go over some text features with you again, just to remind you of what we did last time with this story. And then I picked one of the adventures again, because they're longer than the short stories that I'm going to read to you. So here we have the title page. The title of the story, the author. This includes the titles of all the little books in here, as well as the publisher, the company, that put it together. Next, it does have a table of contents page where it tells you the title of the story and what page you can find it on. There's a foreword written by someone, Corey Nash, an introduction, which I will reread in case you didn't hear it last time. And then the book's broken down into two parts. So there's a section titled Adventures. They are longer stories, 1 to 2 pages per chapter, and each story has 4 to 6 chapters in it. And then the last section of the book are short stories, which are typically just 2 to 3 pages long for each story. The last text feature I'll point out is that go back to the front, the introduction, and I'll read that to you to get us started before we read Raggedy Ann and Andy in the Land of the Loonies. Introduction. Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy are two little rag dolls stuffed with nice cotton with bright shoe button eyes and cheery happy smiles painted on their rag faces. Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy are very happy little creatures too, and they have had so much fun in their raggedy lives they just can't help being joyous and kindly. Raggedy Andy always says, "The reason Raggedy Ann is so lovable and kindly and generous and able to think so nicely is that she has a candy heart with the words 'I love you' printed on it." But Raggedy Andy is just as kindly and cheery and generous as dear Raggedy Ann, and he has no candy heart. And maybe it is just as Raggedy Ann has often said to the other dolls in the nursery. If one just thinks nice, kindly things, if one just does generous, helpful deeds, then that person is filled with a thrill of happiness that shines right through even the shabbiest clothes and brings loving friends close by. And then the graphic feature, the last feature I'll touch on is a graphic feature, pictures, drawings. Okay, so I'm going to turn to, in the Adventures tab, a story called Raggedy Ann and Andy in the Land of the Loonies. Even the adventure stories have their own little title page. Chapter 1, The Camel with the Wrinkled Knees. Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy sat under a tree, watching the sun shine its rays through the woods. "Isn't it beautiful?" Raggedy Ann said. "I think that sign might fall. We're just going to ignore it." "It certainly is," said a voice from behind the tree. Out walked a strange-looking creature. It was a camel made out of flannel and stuffed with sawdust. His legs were so wrinkled, and it seemed he might fall forward with each step. And when he tried to sit down next to Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy, his knees gave way and he rolled over onto his side. My legs are not what they used to be, the camel laughed. See how wrinkled my knees are? When Raggedy Andy tried to smooth them out, the camel smiled and said, "It doesn't do a bit of good. The wrinkles come right back in again just as soon as I stand up." I hope you can see all the pictures. "Where are you off to, Mr. Camel?" Raggedy Andy asked. "Well, you see, last night I came upon a girl who was stuck in a field of snapdragons. That's a type of flower. I could not help her myself, so I told her I would find someone who could." "Maybe we could help," said Raggedy Andy. "Oh, that would be wonderful," said the camel, "but now I cannot remember where the little girl was. You see, it was dark when I found her, and now in the daylight nothing looks familiar." "I have an idea," said Raggedy Ann. "If we blindfold you, it will be just the same as if it were dark out, and then you could retrace your steps." "What a fine idea," said the camel. And so Raggedy Ann put her handkerchief over the camel's eyes. Then she and Raggedy Andy jumped on the camel's back, and they went off through the woods in search of the little girl. We're moving on to chapter 2. The title's at the top. Jenny. "I think I see the little girl over there," Raggedy Ann cried, and sure enough, she did. The camel immediately stopped, and Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy rolled off his back and into the grass. "Don't come any closer or the snapdragons will catch you," the little girl cried. But the Raggedys had already run over to her. Excuse me. "Catch hold of our hands and we will run away from here," said Raggedy Andy. But it was too late. The snapdragons had also fastened themselves around the Raggedys' legs, and nobody could move. "I wonder how long we will have to stay here before we are rescued," Raggedy Ann said. We may have to stay here years and years," the little girl cried. Then she told Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy all about herself. "My name is Jenny," the little girl began, "and my brother's name is Jan. We live in a little cottage right here in the center of the woods." "Where is Jan now?" Raggedy Andy asked. "Well," said Jenny, "one day the strangest little man creature came into our house. It was a loony. He had large rolling eyes and a long red nose and crooked legs. He was so funny looking that Jan and I had to laugh, which made the loony very angry. All at once the loony caught Jan's feet and dragged him out of the cottage and away through the woods. I looked and I looked, but I couldn't find them. Then, when I walked across this field of snapdragons, they twined around my feet and I could not move." And with that, Jenny began to cry. "Please don't cry," Raggedy Ann begged. "We will help you find Jan." Chapter 3, The Tired Old Horse. All at once from out of the woods, a funny old horse appeared. "Why is everyone standing around?" the horse asked. "Is there going to be a parade?" "My friends there have been captured by a field of snapdragons," said the camel. The horse said. "I will look into this." The horse walked right up to Jenny and looked at her through his spectacles, his glasses. "I know you," he cried. "You used to live in the little cottage in the woods, didn't you?" "Why, yes," Jenny replied. "How did you know?" "Well," the horse said, "my owner used to drive me through the woods every day, hauling wood, and that's where I'd see you and Jan. But what are you doing here?" "Jenny has been captured by the snapdragons," Raggedy Andy said, "and so have we, and now so have you." "Nonsense," the old horse laughed. "I shall just have to eat a path out of here." And without another word, the horse started eating, and in a short time they were all able to walk away and sit down beside the camel. "Now what shall we do about Jan?" Jenny asked. "I think I know," said the horse. "You see, I saw the loony come out of your little cottage dragging Jan. I wanted to rescue Jan, but I could not do so because I was hitched to the cart. But I watched until I saw the Looney take Jan inside a great tree, and I'll bet I can show you where it is. Then let's all go, then let's all go look, Raggedy Andy cried as he jumped to his feet. So Jenny climbed up on the horse's back, and Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy climbed on top of the camel, and off they went in search of Jan. Chapter 4, The Land of the Loonies. The camel and the horse raced across the fields. In a few moments they came to a great tree. This is where the Looney took Jan, the horse said. But how could the Looney drag Jan into the tree when there isn't a single hole in it? Raggedy Andy asked as he walked around the tree. The horse said, scratching his head. This must be a magic tree, or at the least the entrance into the tree is covered with magic, so we are unable to see it. Perhaps if the camel couldn't see it all, he might be able to find it. So Raggedy Ann again blindfolded the camel, and when they had all crowded around and caught hold of his nose, the camel backed into the tree and they all disappeared inside. A wonderful sight met their eyes. There in the distance stood a beautiful castle. All at once they were surrounded by Loonies, who marched them into the castle and up to the king of the Loonies. "Aha!" the Looney King cried. "What have we captured?" "Prisoners," replied a Looney guard on a hobby horse. "I can see that," the Looney King said, "but why are they here in the land of the Loonies?" "We have come in search of Jan," Raggedy Andy said. "One of the Loonies carried him away and we have come to find him." The Looney King mused as he scratched his head. "I suppose you will have to answer one of my riddles." "Do you mean that if we answer the riddle, you will let Jan go with us?" Raggedy Ann asked. "Yes," the king replied, "and now I shall ask you the riddle as soon as I've thought of one." Everyone waited while the king was in deep thought. Chapter 5, The King's Riddle. "Oh," the king finally said, "I've just thought of a good riddle. How can a hobgoblin hobble a gobble?" "There's a hard one." "That's not a riddle at all," Raggedy Ann whispered. "He's just making it up." "I think so too," said the horse. "So let's just make up an answer." I hope I can get this right. This is definitely a riddle. Raggedy Ann turned to the king and said, "The hobgoblin can hobble a gobble by gobbling the hobble with a gog-hoblin." "Good!" the king cried. "I mean bad, for I did not wish you to guess the answer. Now I will have to ask you another riddle." "Oh, that isn't fair," Raggedy Ann said. "You promised that if we answered the riddle, you would let Jan go, so it wouldn't be fair if you did not keep your promise." "Boo, boo!" Raggedy Andy shouted at the king. All at once, the king began to cry. "You are all good and fair and kind," sobbed the Looney King, "but I have not been, have I?" Raggedy Ann shook her head no. "Well then, I shall let Jan go," the king said. When Jan arrived, he hugged and kissed everyone. "That was very good and fair and kind of you," Raggedy Ann said to the king. Then the friends marched out of the castle, down the valley, and back through the magic tree. When they came out into the woods, Raggedy Ann said, "Raggedy Andy and I must be getting home." "I suppose we should be wandering on too," said Horse to the Camel. "Jan and I would love for you and Camel to come live with us," Jenny said. "Oh, we would love that," the Horse and the Camel cried. "I am so glad," said Raggedy Ann, "for you know the best kind of happiness is the kind you share with your friends." All right. So pulling something out of that story for your Think and Share this week and your challenge, I want you to think about, in the story, Jenny and Jan were able to move horse and camel into their house, right? And they're wild animals. So, if you could choose a wild animal to move into your house, which animal would you choose and why would you choose that animal? Just as an example, I think I would definitely have to choose a horse also. I think that would be really cool to have my own horse. Now, if you want to challenge yourself a little more, I created another Venn diagram for the challenge where we compare and contrast how two things are alike and different. The things that are the same go in the middle, and the things that are different go on the outside. So this week for this story, I thought it would be pretty cool to compare yourself to one of the characters in the story. And you can pick whatever character you want. So I outlined what the Venn diagram would look like for you. I'll hold it up at the end so that if you want to pause it, you can. I put the title at the top, Raggedy Ann and Andy in the Land of the Loonies. And then for the circles of the Venn diagram, on one side, of course, would be your name because you're talking about yourself. And then you'll pick one of the characters' name from the story, whether it's Raggedy Ann, Raggedy Andy, horse, camel, Jenny, Jan, the Looney King, whoever you want. And that's how you would make your Venn diagram to compare and contrast yourself to a character from the story. All right, boys and girls. Well, I hope you liked this story and this read aloud. Don't forget to watch Miss Clapp's Read Aloud this week and your 3 lesson videos, Reading with Mrs. Lynn, Writing with myself, and Math with Miss Clapp. And we can't wait to see you on Wednesday for our live lessons on Zoom. We will see you at your scheduled time. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.